Everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss Stranger Things. Of course, it is the talk of the town right now, of course, as the new year has rung in officially. We had, well, technically it was New Year's Eve, but I'm sure, like most people, you saw it, during the new year, and people weren't too happy. I pretty much watched the whole thing all at one time. I kind of just, at least a couple days, but it was, the whole thing was already out, and it was like, all right, I'm just gonna finally sit down and watch it. That's pretty much what I did last time. I think I watched, however they did the parts, I think it was, the same as this one, where it was 3 different parts for Stranger Things 4. And I did the same thing. I was like, all right, I watched 1 and 2 together, and I think it was literally like the day before the final part came out. So I was like, all right, and then the rest I could just watch the next day. And I enjoyed it. I personally, like a lot of people actually, I really enjoyed season 4. It's been it's been 10 effing years, so I honestly couldn't tell you much about the other seasons and what I did or did not like. I do feel like, based off what I kind of remember, of course, really enjoyed season 1. I'd have to go back to it to remember like how invested I truly was, because once again, that was a decade ago. So I don't really remember all of my feelings for, really the first 2 seasons are really where it's at, because, a full decade for the first one. And I would assume, I think it's been like basically 2 years for each season. And I don't really remember much for 2. I like 3. I know a lot of people didn't. I did not mind 3. I know people hated them all and they felt like it was too poppy and stuff. And I was like, I actually enjoyed it. So I think I'm one of the people where it's like, I like 3 more than 2. I feel like a lot of people mention they actually like 2 more than 3. Once again, it's been so long. Maybe it's because I only remember that one episode. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe that's why. But it was one of those things where it was like, second season of a show. I was kind of like, oh, okay. But it's been a minute. But of course, I watched every season. It was always like, all right, when it comes out, it was much like anime, where it's like, yeah, I like that. I'll wait till it's done though. Like, I do not do week to week, or in this case, month to month, how they were doing Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then New Year's. It was like, nah, I'll see you. I'll see you when I see you. So watched the show, and it was like, I enjoyed it. Personally, it was going through, and I was like, all right, I enjoyed it. There are some things that I didn't like 100%, and of course, full spoilers, we're talking about the whole show and the whole, final season and season finale and stuff, or series finale, I should say. Also, this is the Stranger Things Season 3 8-bit, 16-bit video game. I played for like 45 minutes. You guys, this video won't be as long as what I played. I played the whole first chapter of that game. Honestly, kind of had a good time. I'm not gonna lie. It's ridiculous. You'll see some of the stuff that happens, but honestly, I was like, this is actually like kind of a fun and throwback sort of game. I remember I got it for free on the Epic Game Store, and I never played it, but I was like, of course it's the perfect time. That game's like 15, is that like, I looked up how long to be, because I was like, maybe I'll actually just play this. That junk was like 10 hours. I was like, I am not spending that much time on this. I got too much of a backlog to just randomly throw in like Stranger Things Season 3 the game just because. I was like, I'm not doing that. But for this episode, I was like, let me test it out. And then I was kind of like, this is actually kind of fun. Like, it felt very old school, and I was enjoying that. So enjoy Stranger Things Season 3 the game. And I guess you can check it out online. I'm sure you can still buy it. I have no idea, but if you want to, there you go. But going through the season, I enjoyed it. I was like, okay, we got some cool moments, and got some stuff here that I like, some stuff that I don't like. Kicking things right off with, if we're gonna go with volumes, just going in order. Things I don't like, I'll say it like everybody else. The time skip, I hated. And I only hated it because the time skip was just one of those, I'm gonna put it like this, and I'll be totally blunt. It's one of those bad writing time skips. You can have a great time skip, most anime tend to, or you can have a bad time skip, much like this did, where it was like, hey, season 4, and it's funny, nobody made this connection, so I'm gonna make this super nerdy connection that of course I can make, and naturally it involves Resident Evil. Watching the end of Stranger Things Season 4 is exactly like watching the end of the 5th live-action Resident Evil movie. I don't remember the name of that one, but I'll just put it like this. It doesn't matter if I spoil it. You shouldn't really watch the first live-action Resident Evil movie. It's really good. And watch all the CG movies, and then you can be done. You're good there. The 5th Resident Evil movie literally ends where you have 5 of the main characters, 3 of which are straight up, actually, I think 4 of the characters are from the actual games, which is like an effing record for that franchise, because they barely, they'll have like game characters randomly pop up. It literally ends with the main character, the main villain, being like, hey, here's your power, because the main character has superpowers, all this. She lost her powers, then he gave her powers back at the end of the movie. It's like, hey, we gotta work together. So it's like the main hero and the main villain work together, and then all of her allies, they're standing on the top of the White House as a unit, and it's like, we have to, basically, this is our last stand for humanity, to fight the monsters. The 6th movie literally starts off and they're all dead. That is the 6th Resident Evil movie. She pops out of a tunnel or whatever, they all died. That is how the 6th movie starts. That's what it was like watching Stranger. It wasn't as bad, of course, but that's my connection. A lot of people reference Game of Thrones. They also say it's not as bad. Never watched Game of Thrones, and then when it ended the way it ended, I was like, I'm not gonna do that to myself. So I treated it the same as a show that got canceled. I was like, there's no reason to watch it. So that's how I am with Game of Thrones. But that was always my connection. I was like, it felt like the end of that Resident Evil movie where I'm like, I'm actually super hyped. I love the ending for 4. It's, the upside, there's clouds and stuff in the sky. And then it was like, slap some metal on that bitch and we are good. Kids sledding on it like, ah ha ha ha. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Can I also reference the fact that, it's been however many years since season 4. The fact that, man, the parents not knowing that there were demons legit made me confused. I was like, they didn't talk about, I swear in my head, they had a conversation in the last season where they told them everything. And then that was not the case until, of course, they got attacked. Also lived, yes, I have a problem with that, like a lot of people. They killed one person, and it was the person nobody cared about. It was like, as soon as she popped up, I'm like, her sister's dead. Let's be honest, like, she's gonna die. They could have killed somebody. Anybody. They could have killed somebody. It wouldn't even have to be any of the kids. There's older characters. I mean, let's be honest, a lot, it's like, all right, well, you can't, Dustin, he's got a cool connection to one of them. Technically, so does Will, because obviously one of the characters, Jonathan, is his brother. But it's, Jonathan can die. It's cool. He can go. Nancy can go. It's fine. Both of them could go. One of them could go. They could have at least played it up a little. Like, even them not dying, they barely played up. Where it was like, them, oh my goodness. I guess we're already in the stuff I hate. Them doing that dumbass fake out in the beginning of the finale pissed me off. I was like, I was just sitting there and I was like, this is stupid. Like, that's honestly what I was like, within like, what, the first 10 minutes. Oh yeah, they killed him off, fade to cut to black, and then cut back. It's like, come on, are you serious? Like I didn't even expect them to do it because it was kind of like the obvious thing, the character that I would say he's like the fan favorite, if not 11. It's probably gonna be, just like that. All I can think is the actor's name is Joe. So Steve, there it is, Steve. Jesus, I could not think of it. All I was thinking was like Joe Carey. That's all I could think of. But Steve, it was like, everybody likes him. It would work if you wanted to kill him. He'd be the character that people would probably be affected by the most outside of 11. And so it was like, they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna kill Hopper because he's like fake died 18 times. If they killed him, it would just be annoying. So it's like, you can't kill him because you play it up too much. If you actually do it, it's just stupid. Because it's like, remember in season 3 when it was like an emotional thing and actually like played to the story where it was like his actual straight up sacrifice? And I don't even hate that they brought it back. It was one of those things, they actually made it work. In my personal opinion, they actually did all right. They actually did an okay job. And maybe because, season 4 was just as crazy as it was, even though it was barely connected to like the very last second where they finally got back to the States, but it was all right. It actually worked. And it was like, you know what? Rarely does that pan out. Pretty good writing. Don't know where that went, but pretty good back then. Pretty good. So if they killed Hopper, it would have just been annoying. They killed the sister, which was like, obviously that's guaranteed. And then they pseudo killed 11. I don't know. For me personally, I think she's alive just because of how weird it would be if she did sacrifice herself. Of course, there's all the back and forth where, there's the ideas of why she couldn't have done it. Callie not being able to do the illusions or having died. Based off of Reservoir Dogs, you can live for a long time with a stomach shot. That's my recollection of it. But also, like people mentions, like, no, she wouldn't have died in the explosion because the explosion wasn't a normal explosion. It was like the special matter or whatever is what blew up, and then that sent out a shockwave. So the building, the actual lab would have been the last thing. Well, not the last thing to get destroyed, but it would have been like in the center of it. So actually, yeah, I guess it technically would have been the last thing because it was in the middle of the circle. So it makes sense that she would have lived, and it was really weird where it was like, 11 couldn't have used her powers. Even without her powers, it wouldn't have made sense that she could have magically snuck past every single person and ran up that ramp. Because even when it happened, I was like, that was weird. That was like the first thing I thought. Was like, oh, she just disappeared, and then she was standing there, and I was like, that's how they're doing it. It's like she just snuck past everybody in half a second. That doesn't even make sense. And so that, in my head, I was like, I already thought it was weird. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go with she lived because honestly, the dying thing makes less sense. And that's just, for me personally, I'm like, her dying actually makes way less sense than her actually living. Does that mean anything? No, because where were the Demogorgons? So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. And I've seen the behind, I've been kind of on Twitter because I was like, I hadn't really joined in the discussion because I don't care that much. So I was like, oh, I haven't even looked into it online just to see how mad people are. And then I started seeing like the behind the scenes stuff, and they're like, yeah, we're filming the last episode, which isn't fully written yet. And I was like, oh, there you go. That explains. There you go. I saw a scene like they were doing the writer's room thing where it's like, I forgot the brothers' names, but the one who isn't Matt, and the only reason I remember that is because his name was at the end of this little moment, but his brother was like, we have to have the Demogorgons or dogs or something because it wouldn't make sense if they weren't there. And that conversation ended, and it just showed, because it had subtitles on, and it showed Matt's name, and it just went, and that's how that scene ended. And I was like, wow. Okay. But I've been hearing, because I've just been watching videos on YouTube, I've been hearing for the past effing week how everything has been, oh yeah, we had this plan from the beginning, and then they just drop these behind the scenes things, and I'm like, have they never done interviews? Because I've never been that invested in Stranger Things, so of course it's never been that big of a deal. But have they never done an interview before? Because what are they doing? What are they doing? And it's hilarious to me because I'm not that invested. I'm just like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. Not nearly as good as season 4, which, once again, I'd have to go all the way back to season 1 to say if that's my favorite. For me, I would say season 4 was my favorite season, and then it probably would be 1 and then probably 3 after that. But it's just recollection bias. I can be totally upfront with that. I never rewatched any of the seasons before, so I couldn't tell you. I don't have much of a memory. Like me seeing the flashbacks in this final season was like, wow, that's what they look like. I do not watch that show. I don't care. I don't watch that show unless it is literally out. I don't think about that show unless it's out. It does not mean anything to me like it does a lot of people. Like it's just not that important to me. So for me, a huge disconnect. But watching those behind the scenes things with everything that happened, and watching all the YouTube videos with all the little interview things like, oh, we didn't show this, oh, we thought people would be fatigued with the Demogorgons and stuff, and I'm just like, hilarious. Nobody needing, it's every video, nobody needing to wear hazmat suits or the smoke and everything. You're being in the upside down, being toxic and stuff, and they literally reference it and make the joke about it. Like, we just kind of flip and flop on canon all over the effing place. It is what it is. And it's just funny. It was funny. But I ultimately, like I said, I just watched it and I didn't care as much. And that's how you have to do it sometimes, where if you're not invested, you can have a much better time compared to being super invested. But there's definitely things where it's like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Some stuff bothered me. Like I said, some stuff didn't. I personally would have preferred if they killed a character, and the only reason I prefer that is because they didn't even do a good job with the lead-ups. Like I said, the whole Hopper thing where I was like, you've done this 18, that's basically half his story in the series, is him like either fake dying or wanting to die to sacrifice himself. That's like his whole like effing story arc is him doing that over and over and over again. So it's like, okay, well, I don't really need that again. So it's just like, meh. And then everyone else was just safe, except for the BS thing with Steve for like half a second, where he fell. Then, like I said, they cut to black, and then Jonathan. And they had it. They had it with Jonathan and Nancy, and it would have been cool if something happened where it was still the very last second, because they could have still. That's the thing. They still could have played it up because they had the back and forth where it's like, hey, Dustin and Steve have their fight, then they have their makeup, where it's like, please don't get on that ladder, and and they have that emotional moment, and he saves his life, but that stops him from getting, going up the stairs. So then it's like, all right, that means it's going to take you more time to get to them. You could still do it at the last effing second, and then they still don't do it. They just do it where they have the scene, which I was shocked that people were confused as with it being a breakup. That's crazy to me, but that goes into the whole thing where Netflix calls, as people to write their shows as if people aren't paying attention. Apparently people are stupid and they don't pay attention, because I'm like, that's got to be the most obvious breakup I've ever seen in my life. But sometimes I guess you have to say we're breaking up, even though the entire conversation was how they don't like things about each other and how they needed space, and how he literally says, I got the ring, but I realized it would have just made things worse for us. And he throws the ring. If you're gonna propose later and stay together, you don't do like an unproposal or any of that crap and then throw the ring away. It's like, he still bought that ring. You just keep it for later. It's like, maybe I'll hold on. You say something else. So I was shocked when I heard people were like, oh, I thought they were together. Were you guys not watching the scene? But anyway, it ends and they just live. Great emotional moment. But then it just ends where it was like, oh, we didn't need to really get rescued. They just had to find their way out. I'm sure with unlimited time, I'm sure they would have kicked through a door at that point because they had the time to do it. But it was like, yeah, they got saved. But it's like, I mean, it's not the same level of being saved when it's more like somebody just kind of opened the door for you, because that's what it was like at that point, because it just stopped. And it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's it. And for me personally, that was the most tension there was. The Jurassic Park scene when they were in the hospital and stuff, I was like, I'm not worried about this. I was worried about the parents. I'm actually, that's not true. I wasn't worried about them either. I thought they were effing toast. I'm like, this dude is dead. He got flipped over. They smacked him. He was gone. Mom got slashed across the throat. They gut checked her and everything. I'm like, dang, if they killed both their parents, that's buck wild. No, they're cool. Everybody's fine. I'm like, you couldn't kill anybody? You couldn't kill their parents? I don't even know their names. I don't even know their names. The mom was gonna be like half a whore in season 3, and that's about all I got from her. Dad never did a thing. They really could have killed the dad off, honestly. They easily could have killed him. I don't know either of their names, but they were like, yeah, okay. And I guess it just feels weird because I'm like, if they mattered at any point, maybe if it was in season 3, I would have been like, dang, like she almost died, and it would have felt really dramatic. But it was like, she didn't, I don't remember what they did in season 4. I don't think they did anything. Went back to doing nothing in season 4, and then it was just like, oh, okay. And then they were nothing. And then, of course, they boosted up Holly to like a main character. That was crazy to me. I thought it was fine, but I was just like, Like her side of the story was like, it had like very small, interesting moments, but for the most part, I was just like not interested in what was happening with her. So it was just kind of unfortunate. And of course, like everybody said, Max went to save her, gave her that whole story like 2 episodes before, like I was right there and then I lost my moment. And then the thing opens up and she's like, hold on a second, you can't come this way. Let's have 5, let's take a 5. Like, can we take a 5? Let's take a 5 right quick. While this portal's right here, I know it left because of the song, because that was before she figured it out. But let's take a quick 5. Like Vecna might be able to find us. He might pop up here because I assume that would automatically be the last place you go to. So that is literally the only place he would go to find you. But let's take a quick minute here. We're good. Let's just hold on a second, because clearly he doesn't need to go through the cave to get to that specific area that's like the final layer. But let's take a 5. Let me tell you how this works. Oh, there's your portal. I'm gonna go ahead and go through here. And I'm not kidding. If they let Holly splat on the ground like I don't know, how old was she supposed to be, 6 or something? I don't know. You know how it is with the ages of the characters. But if they let her splat on the ground and she effing died, that would have been God tier. That would have been some good writing, because that would have been a shock where she drops from the abyss, and then because it's not the upside down, you drop out. You go through the floor of the abyss, you're in the ceiling of the upside down, and then she just drops. I'm like, how are you gonna write this? And then I was like, oh, he just pulled her back. Okay, but I thought she was about to splat, and I'm like, dang, that would be some writing. That would have been something. This whole thing, you lead her up to be like a new main character, and then she splats. She's just like a piece of paint on, it looked like wax or something else if you want to call it that. But she just splats on the wax and she's gone. That would have been exciting. That would have been effed up, but I would have loved that. I would have loved that if she just dropped from the sky and just splat it. That would have been devastating. And that's what they should have done. Because honestly, like, her living, what difference does it make? Of course, the whole having multiple kids, the 12 kids things and all that stuff didn't really make a difference. Once again, not super connected to the show. Meant nothing to me, so I didn't even remember that connection from season 4. I also thought it was just like a creepy thing he did. I didn't think the clock thing ever meant anything outside of the fact that Henry had it in his house. He had a grandfather clock, and so that was just like a thematic thing. But it wasn't thematic in the way of, what does the 12, the number 12 mean? I thought it was just like, that's just the thing he used because it's an old-timey clock and it looks weird. Because even in the 80s, having an old-timey clock like that was fairly uncommon. My grandparents had one in their house. Actually, both sets of my grandparents had that in their house. I don't think about it. Those were fairly common for me in my life. But outside, most of the time, even in the 80s, it was rare to see those specific types of clock. It was like, you just didn't see that around all the time. So I just thought that was a thing. I never felt like there was any connection to that. I thought it was just like kind of his thing. He was just watching the clock, like using the giant, grandfather clock was just like a thematic thing for him to be like, this is out of place. Why is there a grandfather clock here? Like, I thought it was just like a weird, creepy looking thing, like just that random, consistent image that he always used on people. I didn't think it really meant anything, but they got the 12 kids. He was doing it for like, the anniversary. It was just kind of like, I'm gonna just do it on the right time. That's just how it is. We can definitely get into the fact that there was the whole play that happened, which of course I didn't find out till the season ended. And then I was like, oh, there was a play that talks all about all the Henry stuff, also destroys a bunch of continuity because much like they showed, Henry was in high school with Joyce and Hopper. They also screwed up, people mentioned that like Nancy and I can't remember the other dudes. I know he's like the main character, but Nancy's parents, they're like significantly different in age, but they were just like, oh yeah, they're making out together in high school. It's like, well, he shouldn't be doing that, right? Like that seems wrong. So they were just all over the effing place with continuity and like the random things they put in their show. And I hate when that happens all the time, but it really was fairly rampant in the show. Even, once again, there were things that, like stuff like that I wouldn't have remembered because I'm not that connected to the show, but there are definitely things I know is like, them breathing in the upside down, like, huh, okay, that's interesting. Or just little stuff here and there, and it's just like, oh, okay, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. But all in all, I had an okay time with it, but there was a lot wrong with the season and just like a lot of weird stuff that they did. And of course, just the writing or lack thereof is exactly why it ended up the way that it did. Because as soon as that time skip happened, and it was, which a lot of people mentioned, it was just like a normal day in Hawkins, except we're all just kind of stuck in this gated community now. Like the whole city's just in a circle. Let's go to school. It's like, no. And then they just did it as an earthquake, which I'm sorry, maybe I'm crazy. Do the people of Hawkins think the Great Earthquake just magically spouted lava? Because I gotta tell you, you can't have an earthquake and lava comes up. That's not how Earth works. You gotta go like kind of far or be in a really specific spot for that. And they're just like, yeah, it was just a big earthquake. I'm like, that's not even how Earth works. What are you talking about? There was smoke coming out of the ground and they just, metal plate, like you hit your head really hard. We'll just put a plate in it, super quick, we're done. Go to school, everybody, go to school. No questions asked. And then that goes right to the ending. No questions asked. A year and a half later, yeah, we shot some people, we killed some people, government stuff. Like, you guys are focusing on details? Nah, government just left. They left. I do love, Linda Hamilton. Terminator is one of my favorite franchises. I forgot. I think I heard before it came out that she was in it. Totally forgot. That was awesome. She didn't even fucking die. The villain, the other new villain, easiest person to kill off. You didn't even do that. Crazy. But I think that's good enough because I already don't care that much about it. I'm not that invested. And I just wanted to talk about it because everybody else is. And I don't think I've ever done a single review on my channel for Stranger Things. I just watch them, and I don't think I've ever discussed this show. I always thought it was entertaining. Some seasons better than others. Thought 4 was pretty great. Once again, phenomenal ending. Was pretty excited for this. And then it was just like, oh, you guys, I don't think the writers were that excited. That's how it feels. When you spend 2 years for 8 effing episodes. I know it was like 8 hours worth of content, but I can tell you personally, I've written more stuff in like a week than it seems that they wrote for this final effing series because they literally didn't have the final episode written as they were filming it. What do you mean? You had 2 years. I know they have other like Netflix. I'm sure they've done other things, I would assume, but this is like your thing. Just feels like they didn't care that much. That's how I am. When it comes to like the little nerdy things I write, I was like, I care. I'm gonna write that junk to the ending. That's crazy though. That's crazy. Look those behind the scenes things up. I'm telling you, those are hilarious. Genuinely funny. It was like we gotta have the demons, right? Is what they went with. And yes, the mind flare definitely looked like a vagina. Just to throw that out there, it was a straight up vagina. That was just like, that's what you did, huh? Because it's not really much of a spider. It's more like, it's a vagina. It's a vagina face. Cool for me. I got no problem with it, but hey. Probably should have had something else there too. Like any other kind of monster, in literally any way, shape, and or form. Super, super weird. Unfortunate. But we'll see what happens with these spinoffs, right? We'll see what happens. I am actually kind of excited for the animated show. Just based off of the actual art style, I was like, I actually like how that looks. I'm gonna check it out when it comes out. But I am very curious how the community is gonna take it. The people that are way more invested, the people that actually give a crap about this show, never meant that much to me personally. But, watch every season. So we'll see what happens with these spinoffs. We'll see what happens, and people finding out more and more about the play, retconning things, and also kind of adding extra details in and weird stuff like that. So we'll see what happens with it. But we'd love to know your thoughts on all things Stranger Things. Well, how would you rank the seasons? What do you guys think of this final season? The cool things that happen, the crappy things that happen. Which characters do you feel like got a lot? Which characters got a little? Lucas definitely got, I feel like Lucas got like literally nothing in this whole season. I would say Max too, because she felt like such a side character because Holly had been boosted so hardcore that it was like, it's like technically she definitely did a lot, but it still felt like a little. I don't know if that makes any sense. It just felt like she didn't really get to have much. Lucas basically got nothing. I feel like genuinely Lucas got the least outside of characters that just literally didn't, show up in this series. I feel like Lucas like straight up got the least out of this final season, because it was kind of like, oh, well, his girlfriend's in a coma the whole time, and he didn't have to defend her for that long. It was just like that one moment of taking her out of the hospital, and then that was pretty much it. So, like the little moment where he helped the kids, he also got scratched like straight in the chest, and they like just, slapped a little compact on him, and he was good to go. And I was like, oh, well, he's not in the hospital too, huh? All right, good for him. Good for him. So, lots of things. But yeah, there's that. So, we'd love to know your thoughts on the final season of Stranger Things. Whether you're super invested, not that invested. Would love to know your thoughts. If you can pick up the game, and like I said, season 3 thing. I know everybody hates them all, but you can, as you saw in the footage, you can just hit everything. It's really weird. I was like, video games though, that's what they do. Is like they were just doing stuff in that game, and it actually made me laugh really hard. Like destroying the TV made me laugh so hard when I played it. I was like, oops, I did not think I just swung a bat and like blew this dude's TV up. I was like, why did they let me do that? But there's lots of random stuff in there that really did make me laugh. And I did like they had a lot of cool references too. Like that was why I was actually enjoying that game. So if you like what you saw, I'm sure that game is excessively cheap if you can still even buy it at this point. So I guess check that out. But like I said, want to know your thoughts on all things Stranger Things. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.